But I wasn't scalded. I was in very tough shape, though. I was initially laid aside at the hospital. This is the part that's hard for me. No matter how many times I share my story, my parents had been told that the abortionist told the nursing staff to leave me to die. But we now know that it wasn't actually the abortionist who told them to do that. It was actually my own grandmother. My maternal grandmother was a nurse, oversaw a lot of the nurses at that hospital. She is the one who forced the abortion upon my birth mother. She bypassed hospital regulations and procedures with her friend, the abortionist, because they didn't want my birth mother to be facing that pregnancy out of wedlock. And there were issues in terms of whether they were supportive of my biological father. My birth parents, I now know they were engaged, madly in love with one another, could have parented me. But my grandmother forced the abortion, demanded that I be left to die. And we now know that there was at least one nurse. My parents had heard about two, but we now know of one nurse directly, a tall blonde nurse who rushed me to the NICU that day, who was unwilling to leave me there to die.
Wow.
Praise God.
Did she lose her job?
She didn't, but there were fears, I guess, on behalf of the abortionist and my grandmother. They thought they were going to lose their jobs for what was done to me. They did not. But I've been told that the abortionist stopped performing abortions after I survived.
Well, praise God for that.
Yeah, if that is the one good thing that came from that, which many good things have come from that, right? But if that would have been the only thing, that would have been enough for me.
What happened with your grandmother
Curious
over
about
time? You know, was she confronted with that, or dealt with it, or you forgive her? Or,
yeah, that's a really difficult part of my story. So we didn't know until about 7 years ago that my grandmother forced the abortion and that she was responsible for so many things. My mom and dad had been told it was my birth mother's choice, which, you know, I think that fits with what our culture tries to say about abortion, right? But if people know the dynamics of abortion, we realize that there is a lot of coercion, a lot of force, not a lot of choice for a lot of women. So I now know that that abortion absolutely wrecked my birth mother's family. She really has not had any relationship with her family since that forced abortion. It was a secret, right? Nobody talked about it. And one of the pieces they also didn't talk about was the fact that I was alive. You know, people would ask me over the years, do you think your birth mother knows you're alive? And I would always say, well, of course. I was placed for adoption. She has to know. Except she didn't.
Wow. She didn't even know you were alive.
She didn't even know I was alive. When I was born in that abortion procedure, she had been under such distress for over 5 days, right? Physically and emotionally and spiritually and mentally, just was not in a good place. And she truly believes that she was given a pretty high dose of drugs to keep her compliant in the midst of all of that. And so she really was not in any place to know what was going on in that hospital room. But she was told that the abortion was successful. She was told that day, it's hideous, it's a monster, don't look at it. And what they didn't tell her, right, was, well, first of all, that baby is alive. And they didn't tell her if it was a little boy or a little girl. And so she lived with such incredible regret throughout her life. You know, if you sat down with her today, she would tell you that her greatest regret in life was that she didn't run away from her parents in an attempt to save me. And I say the same thing to her I would say to any woman. No woman should have to do that. No woman should have to run away from her family or her partner or her husband in an attempt to save her child. Our world can do better than that. We can do better than that.
Like what you saw? Make sure to comment and like below. Hit that subscribe button for more content uploaded weekly.